Cet épisode est présenté par le projet Les Voix de la diversité, un projet d'action interculturelle financé par Patrimoine Canada. Avec cet épisode et avec le projet, nous visons à promouvoir le dialogue et la diversité culturelle au travers d'activités interculturelles, organisées par les participants et avec l'accompagnement des chargés du projet. Alors, si tu veux t'impliquer socialement et faire une différence dans la communauté estrienne, n'y pense pas deux fois, visite notre site aide.org, réserve ta place et en temps et lieu, profite bien de cet épisode.
Hello, welcome to another podcast by Action Interculturals. I'm your host Abbas Hashim Sayed, and joining me is my co-host Abdul Muqtadir. So we all know that technology is changing at an unprecedented rate, and multicultural diversity is reshaping the industry. Today we are joined by a remarkable guest, Azra Hassan Fandish, a passionate teacher and a founder and CEO of Zelexio. Her expertise and passion in the tech industry have made her a leading advocate for promoting multicultural diversity and technology.
We'll be unraveling the fascinating ways in which cutting-edge technology is revolutionizing on how we connect, communicate, and interact with each other. As we explore the dynamic relation between technology and diversity, we also talk about how technology is helping bridge gaps between different cultures and people from different places. In further segments, we also discuss about how AI is playing a major role in technology and diversity, and what are the challenges that we are facing right now and what challenges can come in near future. It is definitely going to be an interesting discussion, so without any further delay, let's get started.
Bonjour, bienvenue à la podcast. Welcome Azra. Thank you for being our guest today. We are excited to have you here. Before we start anything, how's it going?
Going great. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to spend some time with you today.
Great. Likewise. Before we start, can you introduce a bit about yourself and your background?
Of course. Well, I am a trained teacher. I've been teaching English as a second language here in Sherbrooke for the past 15 years. And I have left teaching 3 years ago to kind of dive into the technology aspect. And today I am CEO of Zelexio, which is an educated technology using AI program that helps students across the world have equal opportunities to learn.
Okay, that's interesting. Can you tell more about Zelexio?
Of course. So it's artificial intelligence and AI program that follows every student depending on how they learn, which difficulties they might have or which strengths they might have, and then the technology will adjust according to the needs of the student and will support him throughout his learning, throughout his school, so he can feel supported without necessarily having to rely on the teacher at all times.
Oh, that's good. And just wondering, how long has it been since you started Zelexio?
It's been 3 years, officially 2 legally, but the 3 years since it all started working in my mind, and 2 years that we've been working non-stop to create the technology and program all the necessary modules and all the technology in order to have it on the market available as of last year.
Sounds great.
All right. So your commitment to promoting inclusivity through technology is really inspiring. And so my question is, so what ignited your interest in exploring the intersection of multicultural reapproachment and technology specifically?
Well, I'm really passionate about technology. Before being passionate about technology, I'm passionate about humans, right? I think that humans are extraordinary beings. We all are. I think we all have something to bring special to the table. And I think putting that forward by using technology, it will only make us better. So as I always said, I'm a big fan of superheroes, Marvel, DC, just so you know, a geek full week here. And I really believe that every human being has like a superpower inside of him. And sometimes, unfortunately, we don't get to tap into that power. So by the use of technology, by getting to know ourselves, we can actually tap into that superpower that we have and be better in what we're doing. When it comes to diversity, being a first-generation immigrant myself, it was something that was very, very important to me to put forward through technology, especially since when I came here, I didn't speak French, okay? So it was very hard for me in school to learn French because my parents didn't speak French, so when I would come home, they wouldn't help me, they couldn't help me with my homework. So I wanted to make sure that through ZXO's technology, we would have the necessary tools to help everyone, no matter their background, no matter their knowledge, wherever they were in life, technology will be able to support them and give them free tutoring classes, free resources, anything, whether it's associated to learning or exploring the world. ZXO, I wanted to make sure that it opens up to that. So that's the beauty of technology. I think it's exploring the world in one click.
Exactly, perfect.
Yeah.
Glad to know that. Coming forward, how do you think that technology has impacted cultural diversity across the globe as you see?
I think it has significantly impacted cultural diversity in very positive ways. Of course, in every positive, there's something negative. I think it's a perception of how you look at it. You know, I always see life as you have the choice of, when you look at a rose, you have the choice of either looking at the flower or looking at the thorn, right? So I see the same way as technology. So the fact that everything's accessible with just a click, it gives the opportunity to a lot of curious people to explore different countries, different cultures, different food, different languages. I think the fact that we can translate something using technology so fast has opened up such an amazing world of communication, because that's what connects us. But then at the same time, we always have to keep in mind that technology is biased. You know, it's always somebody that's behind the technology that has created. So we have to have a critical sense or critical reflection towards the use of technologies. But I do believe that it has literally opened virtual doors to traveling and getting to know people all around the world, which is such an amazing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I just said the technology has been connecting people, and social media is playing a major role in that. So do you think social media does have an impact on cultural diversity as well?
I do believe so. And again, it's taking it with a grain of salt, because there are the negative aspect of social media, there are the very positive ones. I think it's the main goal, what is the most important thing, is to have a critical perception of anything. So that's something that is, of course, the education has to do with the parents, everything. But I do believe that being able to chat with somebody from another country and asking them, like, how's your day today? Explain to me. Like, so it's kind of like tapping into somebody's daily activities, which can help break the stereotypes that we tend to have towards cultures, because you get to connect with somebody on a daily basis versus Googling, for example, what is a Latino culture, and then you have the stereotype of what it is, versus when you're talking with somebody from Spain or somebody directly from another country. So I think that has truly helped. Of course, I do believe the dangers of social media is the anonymity aspect of it, where some people can go to complete extremes. But then again, it kind of falls back to the rose, right? So it's a question of, it's important to be able to look at the rose and not at the thorn at the same time.
At the same time. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. So we know that education has moving to technology. It's not that it's completely based on technology right now, but since COVID, education is going a lot of through online, and that has paved the way for people to get education online, and they've created a multi-billion-dollar domain that we call EdTech today. For example, people from any corner of the world can get online education about anything. So do you think this can help in education, or in terms of interacting people in different way, in terms of an EdTech domain?
Oh, for sure. You're asking somebody who's in the EdTech domain. So I think that the EdTech domain is something that's still in the shadows, because it's a very gray area where a lot of people are either 100% for it or they're against it, because I think it's a fear of the unknown, kind of like diversity, right? Like, we're going to have a fear of the unknown. So I think it's very, very important that all people, all specialized educators, all parents and countries kind of try to understand what will this do for us, instead of saying no right away, because a lot of them are afraid, because they're afraid of discrimination, they're afraid of losing motivation, they're afraid that students will go towards a field that is not necessarily reflective of the educational system. But then again, I think that's only a small percentage, because ed tech is a beautiful way to connect, because I'm old. I consider myself older. I mean, you guys are young, but back in my day, we used to have pen pals, right? Yeah. So when I was in school, we would write letters to people who were in other countries, and then we would sometimes it would be to learn English, to learn French, or whichever other language that we would have. But that would take so long. It would take like for 3 months. You send a letter. And today, as a teacher, I've had a pen pal exchange online with students from different countries, and they would do it for 1 hour. They would chat with each other. So just that openness, that willingness to connect with somebody to another country, that's like using ed tech in a different way. So for me, it's just another door that opens into the magical world of connecting, even though we're far away. So I'm definitely for ed tech, and I do understand that some people might fear, and they fear that it will have an impact on education. But it has been proven with COVID that it only helped. Like Zoom calls, Teams, Hangouts, all of these different technology tools that were used actually helped a lot of students be better even, and than being in class.
So the brighter side is more if we look at it.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
I will always promote technology 100%.
I get it. And technology has provided us with a lot of tools, with AI tools and the tech tools that we have from earlier. And because of this, things like research, learning, finance, etc. is getting easy, because we are able to use tools to translate as well, to interpret as well. What would be your view on this, on the tools that some specific tools that we use to, close the gap between different cultures?
I think it's again, it goes back to kind of like the fear of AI because of maybe the unknown, or sometimes it could be ignorance, or sometimes just usually it's always related to fear, I believe it's a great way to open up those doors of connection, because even using AI, you can find ways to resolve conflict. You can ask AI, like, I'm dealing with this specific person with this specific background. What would be the best approach in order to obtain this type of resolution? So I think using AI, using Faster's way of calculating, communicating, translating, will simply help us connect faster. Maybe not on a deeper level as when humans are face to face, but it's still a great way to help connect more people at the same time on the same level. So of course, for that aspect, I think that it will only get better. And we also have to take into consideration, because we talk a lot about diversity, people, technology, but I think technology also helps us analyze historical aspect of culture. Yeah. So that's something that's very appropriate to bring to the table. It's not just how are you today, but I Googled something, or I researched something, and I was able to understand why some specific people in specific countries, different cultures, will appreciate this type of aspect in their life, because you're able to go back on culturally. And so history is very, very important. It's accessible in one click, so it's very, very interesting to find out, because history is it's part of us, right?
Exactly.
And it defines us who we are, so it's important for other people to have access to that knowledge as well. So.
Yeah, definitely. Even I think that technology is bringing people more closer. I have a story to share about two engineers from Silicon Valley that I have heard of. So this guy is from India, Raj, and there's this girl from Japan, Mia, and they both work in Silicon Valley for some big company, and for sure they were interested in exploring each other's culture. But at the same time, it's not possible for them to go to each other's place or something. It's not always possible. So they created a VR technology. Using that, they are able to create a space where they can see what actually happens back in his country or her country. So definitely things like this in technology, in every domain, I believe has some kind of impact, a positive impact for sure.
Definitely. I think the VR aspect of it, as you mentioned, bringing knowledge to somebody, like even if we think about the aging population that doesn't have access much to technology, or they can't physically travel somewhere or explore. I think having that VR experience is just mesmerizing. It's amazing because imagine you're 85 years old, and you're in a wheelchair, unfortunately, due to health reasons, but then you put on a VR and I don't know, you're in India, you're exploring, you're walking around the streets. I think it's just something that's so beautiful that exactly. So and it's thanks to technology,
Sounds fascinating.
Definitely. Yeah, we could go around the world. And also to add, thank you for sharing your story, by the way. I will also share mine of how we can interconnect. Sometimes technology, it's I had one of my friends who, it was a new friend that I made, and it was my birthday recently, and that friend decided to, we're talking about historical aspect, he decided to Google desserts from my native country, and I did not know, so when it was my birthday, he actually came that he made them by himself, and I just thought that was a gesture, and then he kind of went on how he Googled stuff, and then he found out a more historical aspect, and he's like, wow, it was fascinating, and then I went into it, and then he said he was listening to the music while he was cooking. He was like, I was trying to get into it, and it was just so beautiful because here's this person that I just met, and the fact that he said like, okay, well, she's not from here, I would like to give her something to offer her from her native country, and he just managed to do that in a click. It's fascinating.
Like in today's era, we have a lot of content creators out there, like on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and all those platforms. So how can those content creators and especially the developers of these softwares and all that, they ensure cultural sensitivity to not you may say avoid offending the cultural communities out there? How they can ensure this?
I think it's a great question, by the way, because it's a reality that's out there. It's part of the small percentage that can kind of bring darkness to the aspect of technology and cultural appropriation or cultural misinformation. I think the best way to kind of break this type of negative way of proceeding about it is definitely I always say empathy is the most important thing in life. Of course, the best way to develop empathy, this is the teacher in me talking, it's not the CEOs and NCOs. So the best way to develop empathy is through reading books, of course. It has been proven. So I'm not saying that these people need to read books, but it would be bad. But and especially books that would discuss being the main character from like a diverse background. I think it's important that as these content creators, a lot of them stay on the surface, and when you stay on the surface, you're playing in the danger zone because you tend to go into that gray zone of where you can offend people because you haven't done your research.
Exactly.
I think that somebody who does things fast, it's never a good thing. I think it's if they're creating and they're sharing something with a population that's diverse, that's the reality of today. Like we're all, no matter where you are in the world, diversity is everywhere. So I think it's their responsibility to do the necessary research. I don't think there is actually a way to stop them technologically speaking. Of course, we can block certain words on the internet, which would be great, but it's not the reality, sadly. But I think that these people, what I love about the today's generation is that they would speak up. They would put them on the spot. So I really like that about what's going on. But I don't think there's a direct technological way of stopping them. But they do need to do their research before posting, before creating content, before doing anything. So I think that's something that they fail at as humans and not technology-wise.
Okay, so the humans are behind the scenes, so they are playing a major role in that, for sure. Another question I would have is, we know that using AI, we are able to generate a lot of things. We have technologies that you give an old image and it will work on it to create an image on exactly how it looks. This might affect the artifacts that we have already. It's not necessary we have an artifact, a manuscript that's complete due to damage or anything. But AI is able to generate based on its data set or what it thinks. Do you think this is actually preserving the artifacts, the history that we have, or is it just the AI that it thinks it is what it is?
It's a great question because it really goes beyond the reality of what's today. So we have to think ahead, right? I think there's something that's very, very dangerous on the surface today with AI. I think it's something that's beautiful, but then at the same time so scary, right? Because as you said, we can use it for good, we can use it for bad, right? I do believe that we have to, as humans, always be in control of what we're doing and not let AI affect everything, even when it comes to artifacts or when it comes to collecting historical aspects. I think it's the human responsibility to preserve things as they are and without touching them, because that's the beauty of it. Things happen for a reason and you have to keep it as they are to kind of either learn from it or to get inspired by it. But I think there's a very big danger when it comes to AI, because it goes from cultural artifacts, it goes from, like deep fakes, you've heard about them, right? It goes from misinformation, it can even go from creating hate, right? So it's something that's very, very, that's out there. We have to be aware of it. I don't think hiding behind it will help, but I think we need to be aware, and it is our responsibility to remember and to teach people to be critical thinkers, because once you have that critical thinking, you can use AI to its full potential. If you don't have the critical thinking, then you kind of get brainwashed by a machine, right? That already has a bias.
Yeah.
So it's something that's very, very dangerous. But I forgot to mention this earlier, but artificial intelligence, we are in a revolution right now.
Yeah.
Like it's a huge revolution. It's something that in the following years to come, it'll be everywhere. It's already everywhere, but it will be even more. So it's something that we have to think about, and it makes me think, because not only am I a geek, I'm a history buff. But when the light bulb was invented, it was like the Industrial Revolution, right? And everybody was like, wow. And then you had this percentage of people, they were like, oh, it's the devil, and we're gonna go against it. So we're kind of living the same thing right now. Okay, we have people who are against AI and they're calling it the devil and this and that, but we can't go against it because it's already happening. We are part of it, so we can't stop it. So it makes me think of eventually when the light bulbs were almost in all the homes, the ones that were going against it, they were still using their candles, right? Even though there were light bulbs everywhere else. So we're kind of going towards the same revolution, and I'm kind of scared that the people that are against AI are the ones that might be the more towards not knowing the actual importance of how it works and not being able to critically reflect upon the usage of AI. So it's very, very important, and it's the government's responsibility, it's our responsibility as humans, parents' responsibilities, educational, everyone's responsibility to teach people on the dangers of AI and the potential of AI. So it's kind of like anything, it's kind of like the stove, right? The stove can burn you, but it can make you delicious meals. So it's kind of knowing how it works.
Exactly.
AI, I see it the same way.
So one thing I've noticed that we, in today's era, we use a lot of AI tools out there, right? So we use, let's say, ChatGPT for content creation, and I have seen that people out there they are making, like, creating poems, generating poems out of AI, giving the topic, giving the language, and it can generate the poem. So my question is more concerned about towards technology. It's more so the question is, do you think that AI is actually disturbing or damaging people's creativity to think out of the box?
Again, another good question. Amazing questions, by the way, that they're really deep. I will give you my own opinion, because so it's really from my perception. I've used ChatGPT. I'm a big user. I've used other AI programs, whether it's for work, whether it's for personal. I've even have written postcards or stuff like that. For me itself, I don't think it's killing our creativity. I think it's creating more, because you have to always be the one that's in control. That's the way I see it. I'll say the machine is only as smart as the person controlling it.
Yeah.
So if the machine, you're putting something in and you're using whatever it's getting out of the machine, then maybe from the start the creativity was stopped only at first level. If you can put something in and gives you something back, and whatever you get back, you create something out of it, that's our human side coming into it and being creative with what we're getting back. And then you can use that and put it back into the machine and you get something even better. So I think it's depending on how your perception of creativity or definition is. For me personally, I think it stimulates our creativity. I think it forces us to be better, and it will definitely. I love the fact that you mentioned the poem thing, because I haven't read one, so I can't pronounce. I haven't read a poem from ChatGPT or AI. But of course, I think that some texts, the machine for now cannot feel, right? Doesn't have empathy.
Exactly.
And I've used ChatGPT enough that I'm able to recognize it when other people use it. So that's also something that kind of gives you an edge, right? Because you've used it over and over, and then I've gotten emails from people, I'm like, oh, that ChatGPT, you know? But if I hadn't used it, I would be impressed, you know? I'm like, wow, this person wrote this letter, it's amazing. So then again, it goes back again to the more we use it, the more we know about it, the better we're at it, the more creative we're about it, because then it's also you try to cheat the machine, right? So it creates that creativity. And of course, ChatGPT came out when I wasn't a teacher anymore. So a lot of my teacher friends, they were panicking. They're like, oh, Hazra, what would you do, you know, if you were back? I was like, oh man, I would use this to its full power, you know, like I would definitely overuse it. They were like, well, what would you do? And I would say, like, because a lot of my old students would read a lot of books. I'm a big book. I'm a big geek. I said it, and I love books and everything. So my students would read a lot of books, and of course they would have to write essays at the end of the book. So they were like, well, they would all cheat. I'm like, no. I would have them read the book, and then I would ask them ChatGPT to write an essay, and then I would have my students evaluate the essay that ChatGPT wrote. So you're kind of critical thinking, right? Because you must read the book in order to analyze what ChatGPT gave to you.
Exactly.
So again, it goes back to creativity. It's how you use it to your daily. But you can definitely up your game, as I say. You know, you have no choice. So
great.
The great question.
Thank you.
If you ask me about it, what I would say, AI is actually complementing the creativity. It's not replacing the creativity.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way I see it. It's kind of like bouncing off ideas,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
So no, that's great.
You know, you keep bouncing and you increase the potential, be it of the machine or of the human.
It's for sure, and that's where again it goes back to we gotta teach kids today to push the limits. By pushing the limits, they're bouncing off their ideas and the creativity that comes into it. I like it. Very good.
Okay, too much into AI.
Yeah, no, we love AI.
For sure. Back to cultural diversity.
Yes.
So, people are able to explore different cultures through technology for sure. And some part of the world, like many countries, are fascinated by the glamour of the Western countries. And because of this, they are undervaluing their own culture. Do you think in coming future, because exploring culture is easy, exploring the Western culture, the lights, the glamour is easy, they are going to, kind of diminish their own culture and bring the Western culture as they want it? Do you think is that something we should be concerned about?
To a certain degree, I would say yes, because what I've noticed, and it's part of like the whole process of connecting worldwide, it has had kind of like a depreciation towards their native cultures, whether it's in different parts of the world, even here, like here in Quebec, in Canada, or I think technology has removed a lot of barriers, which is great. But by removing those barriers, we kind of also tend to lose a little bit of authenticity as it is, kind of being like closed in. So to a certain degree, I think there's nothing negative necessarily about it, but the fact that you have access to the whole world, right? You tend to maybe adapt towards certain cultures. So that might be a negative thing because you might be losing your personal culture. But I think the positive thing about it is that you get to appreciate yourself more as a person because you can adapt to something that fits more your needs. So yes, I've seen, personally even experienced a loss of connection towards the primary culture or the secondary culture, towards my parents or my native country, because everybody's kind of like westernized, you know, like everybody's on this new culture and we're using. But then when you get older, in my age, you kind of have that nostalgia, you know, where you're going back to your roots, and then you're going back to the bare roots of like, well, what is the native music of my country? You kind of tend to Google it because, as I said, history is part of us. So for me, it was a cycle personally, because I lived exactly what you said, you know, like I would Google even before I came here, like I would Google, it was mostly Hollywood, right? It's like the stereotype of the American culture, and then, which is not at all the reality of what it is. It's just like, especially now with content creators, and that's one of the scary parts of media, is kind of like believing everything that you see. But yes, I've been through it, like, and that's why I say that to a certain extent it does have an impact, because for me as well, like I was like Western Hollywood, you know, like movie stars, and then the more critical thinking that you developed, the more you will tend to kind of go back and say like, oh, well, this is not necessarily who I am as a person. It is actually my culture, my primary culture. But it's a cycle that everyone will go through. I think it's because we're looking for ourselves as human, right? It's kind of like the process of who we are. But it's a great thing that you mentioned it, because sadly it does have an impact.
Coming to the language part,
yes.
Obviously it's a very crucial part of culture, society. So as you definitely you know, the recent language bill, Bill 96, which has been recently passed by Governor of Quebec back in May 22. So which enforces use of French language within IT companies and companies across all the Canada. So my question is, how can companies ensure or their commitment towards the cultural diversity? How they can commit towards cultural diversity, especially like in the context of maintaining multilingual communication within the company?
Definitely. That's a very sensitive question.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great one. It's very sensitive because with everything happening, and I'm not going to get too into it because I'm a big believer, and it's studies have demonstrated that the more languages you know, the smarter you are. You know, it's part of the process.
Obviously.
So I do understand the aspect of promoting French, and I'm a huge lover of the French language. Nevertheless, I do believe that having varied language opportunities in a company, especially when it comes to technology or any other aspect, I think it's what makes us great. I don't think that putting down one thing, of course it will have an impact on the diversity for sure, which is what kind of scares me as a person, because for me, diversity is the air that I breathe. You know, it's like a regular thing for me. I don't need to think about it. It's part of my DNA, right? So the fact that it will impact my process of hiring people, it saddens me, because I don't wish that people feel left out just because they don't necessarily speak the language to its full extent, right?
Exactly.
And especially me, like all the employees that I have, we're all French, English, other different languages. We're very diverse at Zerexio. That's part of our values. And what I love about programming, which kind of goes back to technology, is the beauty of it is they all speak the same language, right?
Exactly.
So whether you're programming in Python, in Java, whether you're here, whether you're in China, Japan, India, they're speaking the same language, right?
Exactly.
So that is something that's so beautiful, right? So even though they have different cultures, they're definitely living in different cities, this technology connects them. And then you will see a lot of exchanges in different groups, how these people connect through something that they have in common, which is technology, right? So the language of technology. So I do think that it will sadly have an impact on the workforce here in Quebec. I think it will have an impact maybe for a moment until people adapt. Of course, it will take some time. It's not going to happen tomorrow morning. But for me itself, for my developers, which I love, and I want to say hello to my team, best team ever. For me, it's important that they speak the language of technology, which is the most important one. And in between me having my teacher background, I really want to make sure that they have the necessary tools to be able to kind of fit into that box that was given by the government, transformative.
I asked one of my friends, he's a VP, vice president of a technology company in US. So the same thing, that are you willing to invest, in multicultural diversity within your organization, even if you have to sacrifice your short-term growth of company, business side, obviously you will get long-term benefits, but short-term you have to sacrifice. So he was like, obviously, his answer was that yes, to gain a customer base, which has, obviously customers are from diverse cultures, diverse backgrounds. So if I have to gain customers from diverse backgrounds, and for that, if I have to change my company's core values around multicultural environment, I will sacrifice my short-term benefits for the long-term gains. So obviously your answer relates to this thing, that it's really important to promote multiculturalism in our company.
It's essential. Honestly, ZXU would not be where it is today if we didn't have all the people that gave their talents towards ZXU. They invested with us, and I believe that hiring diversity gets you to a whole new level, because everybody has a different way of seeing things, everybody has a different way of working, and the fact that they bring their background to work, I think it's extraordinary, because I will see this glass in a specific way, and then they will see it differently, and they will say like, oh, well, Azra, maybe we should do this way, and I was like, I didn't even think of that, because I'm living in my own box, right, of my own cultural aspect. So the fact that we have people coming in from different, it's fascinating, because yes, it's an investment of time, as you said it, because you need to invest to work towards communication, you need to work towards having empathy and having being open, because we're all bringing something different. But once you get through after that period, it's mesmerizing, because we just have like all these ideas mixing, and it's like we would not be where we are today just because they're bringing such great ideas.
Exactly.
And I love the saying of Einstein that says, it's foolish to be doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Exactly.
So I think bringing diversity will break that barrier. So it's essential for every company.
Yes.
So for sure.
What I think is, as much as technology has helped different cultures get together, different cultures getting together has also helped technology.
Exactly. Honestly, that's the best way to put it. It has a huge impact.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah. And do you think any steps that an individual can take just to preserve technology and diversity at the same time? As an individual, any person that is liable to any person.
I think it's essential that we preserve human contact as much as we can in order to help technology help us to get to the next level. And I think that when it comes to diversity, the best way to get to know the other cultures or to break the barriers of the stereotypes, it's always find a person that comes from that region and discuss with them and have them, create friendships, and then through chat or through things like that. Because if we Google specific things, we will of course end up in the surface, right? So we won't be able to kind of go into depth on how can we connect with this person. So, and that's where kind of the dangers are, because if you stay on the surface, that's where cultural appropriation can happen. That can happen, like stereotypes and segregation and all of these different things. For me, I think human contact first, technology second. Yeah.
So, is there any final thought or piece of advice you would like to give our audience about technology and multicultural diversity, and how can we go ahead with these important points we discussed in today's podcast moving forward?
I'll try to keep it short. I don't have an advice directly. I think that it's very important above all, it's important to be able to have critical thinking before going into technology, because that will help you. And a lot of people are like, well, how do you develop critical thinking? It's through reading, trial and error, by discussing with others. Again, the human part has a huge influence on critical thinking. So I do believe technology has great avenues to promote diversity, and I definitely suggest, and I kind of go back to my friend that I mentioned that he cooked for me. You know what, cooking is connects us all, right? We all eat.
Yeah.
So I think for me, technology can kind of help. I always suggest to people like, well, you know what, look up a recipe, try it, try to have a taste of that culture or something, and then exchange with somebody. Try to connect on something that you like as a person. And sometimes they're like, well, I don't know what I like. And I always say, like, we all like to eat, right? I haven't met somebody that doesn't like to eat. So I think it's the best way to kind of use technology. The first step in promoting diversity is like, try to cook something from a different culture, and then you probably will end up liking it, and then you're gonna look for more, and then try other, and then always connect with humans. Like in the meantime, I think that a lot of people are afraid to connecting with other people. I think it's a human sadness. When we age, we have a harder time making friends. It's kind of the sadness of growing up, but we should break those barriers and definitely go towards exchanging with humans and human contact, and then technology in between. So.
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank
you
so much.
It was a great conversation with you.
Well,
I really got
so
your points.
A lot of learnings today. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me. It was really nice getting to know you.
Likewise.
Thank you.